Good morning. So thankful for the opportunity to be gathered here with you today. As a matter of fact, it is a privilege for the opportunity to worship our God together, to sing praise to His name, to give Him the glory and the honor that is due to His name. It truly is a privilege and a wonderful opportunity, and I'm glad to be here with each and every one of you. I want us to take into consideration the ways of a godly mother as we look at this text this morning, looking at Proverbs chapter 31, especially verses 11 through 31. And I want us even to consider the verses that were read just a moment ago by Johnny and recognize that a godly mother, she is deserving of praise. That's what the text says. And she will be praised, is what the text says. You know, I was grateful this morning to have the opportunity to wake up. Of course, I wake up and I'm one of those who typically might even wake up singing to himself, just excited about the day. I'm in a good mood. I'm talkative, right? I'm very energetic first thing in the morning. And my wife is not so much. Sometimes I say too much in the morning and I might get on her nerves just a little bit. But this morning, I was able to run her down and give her a big old hug and say Happy Mother's Day. And of course, that was met with a smile. I'm grateful for her. I'm thankful for her and her love that she has shown to our children and helping to raise them. I'm grateful to have my mom here with me this morning to worship God together. I'm thankful for her love and compassion in my raising. And I'd probably be amiss to not mention also the long-suffering and patience, because believe it or not, I was not always easy to handle. So I'm grateful to be here with her, to share this time with her. Thankful for her love and compassion and my raising that I received from her. You know, I was even somewhat reminiscent this morning about my granny, and of course my nanny as well, my grandmother and my great-grandmother, and the memories that I share with them. And of course now when I talk about them, I still give them praise. They're deserving of praise. And the text was stating even that the godly mother, she is one that is deserving of praise. And I want to take this special opportunity to say thank you to each and every mother that is represented here this morning that makes up the Mount Vernon Church of Christ. We are so thankful for your devotion to the Lord. We're so thankful for your dedication to your families and your guiding and your instruction in leading your children in the ways of the Lord. We thank you. We are so grateful for each and every one of you. You know, in Proverbs chapter 31 and verse 10, the writer says this. He says that a virtuous wife, who can find her? That her value is far above rubies. And I think it helps us to understand that the immeasurable value of this individual at hand, we can't place a value on that because of how she impacts those who are around her. And we're going to see that as we work through the text. What a great impact she has. As a matter of fact, if you consider even in Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 14, Solomon would say this. He would say that the inheritance of a father is riches and houses, right? That's what you're going to receive from a father. But he says a prudent wife, that is a gift from the Lord. One who considers, one who thinks, one who is discerning, one who makes wise decisions. He says this is a gift from the Lord, and I think all these things we recognize in the mothers that we see here this morning, and they're due of our praise. And we appreciate you. We thank you very, very much. And I want you to understand that the fruit of your labors is evident in the lives of those that you have raised, in the lives of those that you have had an impact on, that you have had an influence on. We thank you for that. The fruits of your labors are evident. Now, when we come into Proverbs chapter 31, I find it fascinating that everything that we have in regard to Proverbs chapter 31 and this virtuous woman is a reflection of the impact that a mother had on her son. You see, if you look at the very beginning of the chapter, it's attributed to the utterances which his mother taught him. But I would even think beyond that, it's also the very idea of the life that she lived and the image that she presented before her son and the way that she saw or he saw her live. Therefore, the memories that King Lemuel has shared with us of his own mother and her wisdom provide the blueprints for godly motherhood. And there's three valuable lessons that we can take from this text, looking at verse 11 through verse 31. And I want us to look at this, and of course I hope that it helps us to better appreciate the mothers that we have, better appreciate the wives that we have, and all the responsibility that they take on and the hard work that they do each and every day. I hope it helps us to appreciate them more. But also I hope that it helps to see the pattern and to see what it is that the godly mother is striving for each and every day, the life that she is trying to live in devotion and dedication to the Lord. So let's consider first from verses 11 through 17. Verses 11 through 17, cultivate healthy homes. Godly mothers cultivate healthy homes. And we're going to see no less than 4 ways in which this is done through these verses under consideration. And if you look at verses 11 and 12, think about it like this. Build a foundation of trust and faithfulness. Verse 11 and 12 read, the heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. And at its core, I think simply it is this. It's understanding and putting to practice what we find in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 24. In Matthew chapter 19 and verse 5. The leave and cleave aspect where two come together and they're joined together as one flesh and they love one another and they're devoted to one another and they build this foundation of trust and of faithfulness. And they understand Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 4. That marriage is honorable among all. You see, the godly mother is devoted to her husband. She wants what's best for him. And if you understand the principles that are taught in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 29, when it's speaking this idea of the two being one flesh, and no one would despise their own flesh, but rather they're going to do those things that cherish and nurture their own flesh. That's the idea. This godly mother, this godly wife, she's not going to do anything to harm her husband, but rather she's going to do the things that are good for him, and he can trust in her. And it's not a misplaced trust. And you might wonder, okay, well, what would be a misplaced trust? You see, this is something that is deserved. I was actually researching, and I was curious, just statistically speaking, how many people are unfaithful at least once in their relationship? Now, the statistics showed 20%. Now, of course, these statistics are based upon those who are willing to confess that wrong, right? So it's possible that it could be about 25 or maybe even 30%. I'm not sure. 25 to 30 possibly that are unfaithful in their marital relationship. Now, I did another search. How many people believe wholeheartedly that their spouse is trustworthy and faithful? 95%. You see, what that tells me is there's a big difference. You have 25 to 30% that are unfaithful. You have 95% that say, yes, my spouse is faithful. There's some misplaced trust in there. That's not what we're talking about under consideration here in Proverbs chapter 31. This is deserved. This is trust that she has earned, and she honors the confidence of her family, and the result is that her husband can go out about his daily responsibility with no worries, with no concerns, because she trusts in him and he trusts in her. That's the picture, that's the image under consideration, not misplaced trust. You know, someone once said, they said, trust is the assurance of love's presence. Right? We all understand that you have to have trust. There has to be this foundation of trust for a healthy relationship and a healthy home. Trust is the assurance of love's presence and the test of its permanence. You see, if we truly love our spouse, we're going to do everything to build them up. We're going to do everything all the days of their life to do them good and not evil, and we're going to build and we're going to lay this foundation of trust and faithfulness. That's one way she does this. But if you look at verses 13 through 15, she models diligence and responsibility. The godly mother models diligence and responsibility. The text says she seeks wool and flax and willingly works with her hands. She is like a merchant's ships. She brings food from afar. She also rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and a portion for the maidservants. Simply put, she's hardworking. Right? She does not have an idle hand, but rather she is active, she is busy, and she is committed to the needs of her home. Now, one of the things that we're going to grow to understand as we work through this text is this is just first of many things that are said that express the work ethic of this godly mother. She's hardworking. Now, let's look at this verse just a little bit more, these 3 verses, and consider 3 things. If you look there where it says she works with her hands, here's what I take from that. It's personal. This is personal to her. She's personally involved, working with her own hands. She does not delegate her responsibilities to other people, but she's personally involved. Now understand, yes, there's a maidservant mentioned. She's going to have her responsibilities. There's going to be children. They're going to have their responsibilities, but the mother herself is also personally involved, working with her hands. And I think God honors hands that are willing to serve and not just manage. No, she's personally involved. She's working with her own hands. We'll look at the next verse. It talks about how she brings food from afar. She's a provider. She provides for her family. You see, the idea of merchant ships, in my mind, suggests intentionality and effort. She's putting forth effort with her own hands to be a provider for her home. She does not wait for provisions to come, but she goes in search for those provisions for her family. How about this? It says she rises while it is still night. She's prepared. She's prepared even in the early hours of the morning, preparing for her family for the needs of the day. She prepares before the needs arise. You could say that she is reactive, not proactive. Or she is not reactive, but rather she is proactive. You know, in Psalm 90 and verse 17, Psalm 90 and verse 17, it says, "And let the beauty of the Lord be upon us, and establish the work of our hands." Yes, and establish the work of our hands. The beautiful hands of this mother is that she is one who is personally involved in her family's needs. She is a provider for her family, going far distances to make sure that her family has what they need. And she is also prepared and waking up even in the early hours to provide their meals, to provide the things that they need for the day. This is the image of the godly mother under consideration. What about verse 16? Verse 16, think ahead with wisdom. She considers a field, and she buys it. From her profit, plants a vineyard. If I'm reading this correctly, the thought is she makes thoughtful plans that benefit her household long term. The decisions that she makes and the things that she does, it's going to be for the long term and the benefit of her family. Well, if I'm going to continue with the alliteration, we've already said what it's personal, right? Personal, she's a provider. And we've said she's prepared. What about prudent? She's prudent. She considers the things that she does so that she can benefit the family even long term. Remember what we said even in the introduction, Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 14, Solomon speaking about how, yes, the inheritance of a father is that of houses and riches, but he says a prudent wife, that's a gift from God. She is prudent. That is the godly mother. She is prudent. She exercises discernment and planning, which leads to investments that benefit long term, not just in the moment and not for instant gratification. She's prudent. What about verse 17? And I want you to think about this as we go into this verse. Prioritize personal strength and wellness, and something I want us to consider, because we're going to see this kind of repeat as we work through these sections of verses as we go to each point. What we're seeing about this godly mother is how she gives attention to all the things around her and all the people around her. And then it circles back and it shows then how she's thoughtful about herself also. And what that does, at least in my mind, is makes me think about her selflessness, because she's first going to serve others, she's going to provide for others, and then it circles back to her own needs. And this is not the first time that we're going to see this, or this is not the only time that we're going to see this, but this is the first. All right? Prioritize personal strength and wellness. Verse 17, she girds herself with strength and strengthens her arm. She does not neglect her own well-being. And though, yes, she is busy providing, preparing, taking care of everybody else in the household, she does not overlook her own needs or her own well-being. And I think, simply put, because she understands that it's her well-being that allows her to do so much for so many other people. So she does not overlook herself. Well, when I was thinking about this idea of she girds herself with strength and she strengthens her arm, and I'd already started the alliteration through the previous verses, and I thought, okay, a word for strength that begins with a P, and the first thing I thought was powerful. Well, then I'm not going to lie, the first thing that came to my mind, that old lyric where it says, "I am woman, hear me roar," and I thought, okay, maybe that's a little bit too strong of a word here, right? What about poised? She is poised. She is poised, strength with grace and readiness. You see, she's not only looking out for the needs of all those in her house. She's not only getting up before everybody else gets up in the early morning hours to make sure everybody is provided for. She's working on into the day, and she is taking care of herself because she realizes her own well-being is what allows her to continue to bless so many people in her life. She builds this structured home. She builds this foundation. She builds this trust. She builds this faithfulness. She nurtures this healthy home. Consider the next set of verses, verses 18 through 22. Verses 18 through 22, and what we see with the godly mother is that she works with purpose. She works with purpose. And I think at the very heart of this, what has to be understood first, if anyone really is going to work with purpose, they have to recognize the value of their work. All right, and we're going to see that in these first verses. Look at verse 18 and verse 19. She perceives that her merchandise is good, and her lamp does not go out by night. She stretches her hand to the distaff, and her hand holds the spindle. The idea is that she is not working simply to stay busy, but there is purpose involved in a willingness to work even into the late hours. Now, remember what was mentioned a while ago in her preparedness and her willingness to get up before the sun even rises. And now she recognizes the value of the work that can be done with her hand, and she's willing even to work into the night hours. And we'll see here in a moment possibly one of the reasons why. But nonetheless, she's busy early in the morning. She's busy through the day. She's busy even in the afternoon or in the evening, and it's with purpose. She's working with purpose, and we see that. And she recognizes the value of her own efforts. And I can't help but to think about Colossians chapter 3 and verse 23. Colossians 3 and verse 23, and it talks about how the things that we do, right, the work that we do with our hands, we should do it heartily, right, as to the Lord. And I can't help but to have this image of this godly woman and everything that she does, in every task and responsibility that she takes on throughout her day. I can't help but to see someone who is giving it their all, who is completely dedicated to it, who's doing the best that she can in everything that she does so that she has the best that she can offer for all people involved. That's the image. That's the portrait that is being portrayed for us. And as a matter of fact, if you think about some of these words within these verses, think about the idea of the hands to the distaff or even to the spindle. These are skilled tools, reflecting not only a woman who knows how to work hard, but also with precision and expertise. You see, she takes that which she is good at, and she develops that skill. And she uses that, watching the next verse, in verse 20, to help other people. Use your abilities to serve, verse 20. She extends her hand to the poor. Yes, she searches out her hands, or she reaches out her hands to the needy. Now, I find this somewhat fascinating because she recognizes that her ability has now become a responsibility. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where maybe it's something that you're very good at, something that you can do with your hands, or something that you're capable of, and it comes to a point in life where your ability can soon be what helps somebody else out in need? You see, the text is saying she's lending her hand to the needy. She's lending her hand to the poor. And she's taken that which she is good at. Think about the previous verses, the spindle. She's taken that which she is good at, an ability she has, and she's taken on a responsibility to provide for others. That's the selflessness. That's the heart. That's the care. That's the desire of this godly mother. Her hands are not just busy. They're available. They're available specifically in this text even for the poor, even for the needy. You know, in Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 17, Solomon would say this. He says, he who lends to the Lord, or he who, not lends to the Lord, he who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord. And you could easily say he or she who has pity on the poor and lends to the Lord pays them back. And I can't help but to think about verses like in the book of Matthew, in the Lord speaking, where he speaks of how when he was naked, they clothed him, how when he was hungry, they fed him, How when he was in need, they supplied for that need. All these things that the people did, and they say, well, wait a minute, Lord, what are you talking about? When did we see you in need? When did we see you hungry? And he says, as much as you did this to the least of my brethren, you did it also to me. You see the godly mother and the ability that she has. She takes that on as a responsibility to provide for others and recognizes just the same as Jesus was a servant, she wants to be a servant. And she wants to use that which she is good at for ability to help other people. She takes on that responsibility. Look at verse 21. Prepare your family for every season. Verse 21. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household is clothed with scarlet. You might think, okay, she doesn't mind the cold. What's that have to do with anything? If you really consider what's being said here, and the text says she's not afraid of the snow for her household, the reason being is she ensures that her household is ready for the challenges and the changes of the season. And think about how it's already talked about how she personally provides and prepares her family for the day. But now it extends that and it says, look, even in the changing of the season, this godly mother has provided her family with the clothes that they need to get through the cold and the harsh months of the winter. And not only that, it says that it's with scarlet. And I think there's something to that. Because when you think about something that is scarlet, you think about something that is one of those materials that is somewhat of a fine or precious material. And I think the point that could be made here is it's not that she's just giving them rags. It's not that she's just providing for them whatever she has at hand, but rather she's searching out the best that she can provide and trying to prepare them even for the winter months, the changing of the season. She's ahead of the game. She's continuing to work with her hands, with her abilities to provide for her family. And she's going to provide the best that she can with her ability and give the best that her labors can provide for her family. That's the godly mother. All right. Well, consider even from the previous point how it talks so much about what this godly mother does for her family, and then it circled back about how she cares for herself also. All right, well, watch, it's going to do the same thing here. It's shown how much she cares for others and all her responsibility to those around her, and it's going to circle back to herself. Adorn yourself with dignity and care, verse 22. Adorn yourself with dignity and care. The text reads, she makes fine tapestries for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Now, the first time I read through this in my studies for this lesson, I was thinking to myself, okay, everything that this godly mother, this virtuous wife, everything that she has done thus far shows great selflessness. It shows humility. It shows a woman who wants to serve others, puts their needs before hers. And then I get to this text, and it says how she's going to adorn herself with fine linen and purple. And if you understand anything about the ancient world, purple was not an easy color to come by. As a matter of fact, sometimes it was more so used simply for royalty. And I was trying to think, okay, well, why is it that she's going to wear something so nice and everything else has showed such humility? How do I make the connection here? And I even thought about verses like 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 and 4. Right? 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 and 4, speaking about the woman's adornment. Do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, and watch this, or putting on fine apparel. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. Okay, well, one text says that she's going to wear fine linen and she's going to wear purple, that of the most valuable dyes and colors that they have to offer. And in another text, it says you're not going to put on the fine apparel, but rather let God see the hidden person of the heart. Okay, well, let's think about this. Peter is not condemning beauty or adornment in itself, but rather what he is condemning is misplaced priorities. You see, his point is, don't let your identity or your worth be defined by external beauty, but rather by inner character. What have we seen about this virtuous wife throughout the entirety of this text thus far? An expression of her godly character. You see, this chapter, Proverbs chapter 31, shows a woman of wisdom who reflects strength and dignity even in her appearance. And I don't think for a second that her fine clothing that is spoke of in this text is anything to do or anything about vanity, but rather it reflects honor. It reflects dignity. It reflects self-respect. And it is a product of her own work ethic. You see, she has earned what she has. And even if it is the finest of things. And again, if you think about how the pattern has worked as we work through these points, it is expressing what she does for everybody else, how she does it, with great devotion, with great determination to provide, and then it comes back to her. In the same sense, it did it again. All of the focus on other people, showing her selflessness, and then comes back and circles back to her. One final point. Value what matters most. And really what we're going to say here, the thought is that this godly mother, she's going to value the right things. She values the things that matter most in life. And we're going to see this from verses 23 through 27, as well as verse 30, expressed in at least 5 ways. All right? One way in which this is done or is seen is strengthening the influence of your family. And we're going to see that. She strengthens the influence of her family. Verse 23, her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Now it transitions, yes, to how the husband is seen among the people, among the society around him, how he's seen with respect, but we're thinking about how the wife has a role in this. So her husband is respected in part because of her faithful support and influence behind the scenes. And I think about that and look at the world around us, and I try and consider how we see so many people who do so much harm to the influence of their own household and simply how they speak about those in their household to other people. You see, what I have in my mind when I think about this godly mother is that when she is out in public and when she sees other people and she is conversating about her husband, she's speaking to his strengths. She's speaking good about him. She's helping people to see the good qualities that he has. And in doing so, she's building up the influence of her husband even among the leaders of the city. She's not going to speak ill of him in public. She's not going to try and belittle him. And we see so many people do this today. They'll use an opportunity or a public platform to belittle their spouse and speak ill of them, but rather build them up. And of course, those weaknesses, because nobody's perfect, they're going to be discussed at home. They're going to be overcome at home. She's going to influence her family. She's going to increase and strengthen the influence of her family. Verse 24 is going to shift again back to some of the things that she does. And I think the point that could be made here is that you use your talents to make an impact. And I wonder if this somewhat connects to the previous verses and maybe giving us somewhat of an explanation of how she has these opportunities to strengthen the influence of her husband. Because she also is out in the public. She's also working. She's selling the goods which she has made with her own hands. And she is even supplying it again, not idle, but rather being productive with her resources. And maybe it's in these opportunities that she can talk to others and express what a wonderful husband she has and build up that influence that he has among the community. And I think all of this is a reflection around the idea that she prioritizes her good character. Verses 25 and verse 26. It says, strength and honor are her clothing. She shall rejoice in the time to come. She opens her mouth in wisdom, with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. She prioritizes good character. Think about the idea that it is strength and honor that clothe her. It is her character that people see when she approaches them, when she speaks to them, when she interacts with them. It is her good, godly character that represents who she is. And I think if you even consider some of the verses that we've looked at thus far, you look at verses 11 and 12 and you see that she's trustworthy. Is that not a good character? Is that not a good trait to have, trustworthiness? You look at verses 13 through 19, we see that she is hardworking. You look at verse 21 through 24, she's concerned about her family. We saw that she's even concerned about those who are in need and those who are poor. You look at verse 25, she's optimistic. Verse 26, she's kind. And even verse 30, we're going to get there in a minute, but she fears the Lord. All of these express who she is and the good character that she strives to have. In everything that she has to share, she opens her mouth with wisdom and a tongue of kindness to build up, edify, encourage, and strengthen those around her. And all of this she does on a continual basis. You get to verse 27, and it shifts back even to the home again. Be concerned about the needs of the home. It says she watches over the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Now, of course, the final statement there, just another reminder about her work ethic and her willingness to provide for her family, not to be idle. But it also expresses this idea that she's concerned and she watches over the way of her household, and I would say not only physically but also spiritually. That she is personally involved in caring for each and every person in her household, and she is concerned about the ways of her household. And she is there to meet those needs for them. And finally, all this is in connection. The greatest trait that can be found in this godly mother, in this virtuous wife, is found in verse 30. She fears the Lord. Everything that we've discussed and everything that we've expressed about this virtuous wife is founded in this statement right here. It is an outgrowth of this, her fear for the Lord. Charm, right? Personality or social grace, guess what? It can be misleading. That's what the text is saying. Beauty, physical appearance, it's fading, but fear of the Lord. Proverbs chapter 9 and verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. This is the greatest attribute that she has to offer, and the foundation that has built everything else that she does in her life, her fear for the Lord. And I want you to see, even where we began, we'll circle back to it, that she will receive praises. You look at the closing verses, and you'll see no less than 4 times that it's mentioned about how she's going to receive praise. She's going to receive praise from her children. She's going to receive praise from her husband. She's going to receive praise from those who she has had any interaction with in her life. She's going to receive praise from the very fruits of her labor. She is worthy of praise. And we need to make sure to take the opportunity to give praise where praise is due. There is a very, very challenging picture or portrait that has been provided here. But nonetheless, I feel that it's the very portrait that the mothers here in this congregation strive to live up to. The character, the traits, the lifestyle, the way of living, the love, the compassion, all the things that are found here, I very much believe the ladies of this congregation strive to have. Is it perfect? It's not perfect. Is it purposeful? Absolutely. Here's a challenge for us men. You can read through this text and very much, yes, this expresses the virtuous wife. But you can also go through here and make a lot of application for how we need to be living our lives as leaders of the home, as the spiritual leaders of the home. The question is, at the end of the day, are we living up to the standard? Moms, are you living up to the standard that we find in this text? Wives, are you living up to the standard that you find in the text? Husbands, are you living up to the standard that Jesus himself set before us in serving others? Think about even how it's said in Ephesians chapter 5, how the husband is to love his wife, even as Christ loved his church and gave his life for her. Is that the love that you display for your spouse? The bar's been set high. At times we make mistakes, but I hope at the end of the day, we recognize a good thing when we see it. And we're willing to give praise to our spouse for all the good that they do, and the amount of hard work that they put in, and the love and compassion that they show for us and for all those who are around them. Maybe it's the case this morning that you've been lacking in any of those areas, struggling to hold up your end in the home. Maybe it's the case that you need prayers. Maybe it's the case that you're living in sin and you need to make change in your life. Maybe it's the case that you just want to get off on a start to living up to the example that is seen in the pattern that we find in Proverbs chapter 31, and we can pray for you and pray with you about that. Whatever the case may be, if you have need this morning, please let it be known as together we stand and as we sing.